Thank you. Y'all know my friend Lynn. He started beekeeping whenever he was sitting in his grandmother's lap in a rocking chair, and she would actually dip his pacifier in honey and stick it in his mouth. So mostly get him to shut up. So anyway, thank y'all for being here. We appreciate so much your support, and we just love this casual event. We still don't think we need to have a bee club and all that official stuff. I think everybody's very happy with doing it this way, and the food's always good. And thank Lynn and Brooke for providing it, and I appreciate you paying for the raw meat so they can cook it. We have a great group tonight. We have our friend Jeremy Pate from Folklore. He's going to tell you about his latest products, and if you want some more samples, he's got some. And then we will go to the special event tonight. But go ahead, Jeremy. Thank you, sir.
Well, guys, good to see everybody again. If you didn't get a chance to try it, I brought a grape mead, which is actually called piment. Been trying to say that word to 150 times or whatever tonight was impossible. So piment is an ancient word used to describe grape mead. So it's honey wine made with grapes. And so for anything to be a mead, it has to be at least 51% honey. And this was actually back sweetened with monkey foot honey. So I really like doing stuff like that with small batch at least, sometimes 15 gallons at a time, so that we can just literally taste of local honey. So if one of you guys end up getting a gallon worth of honey, I can make a few kegs, you know what I mean, by back sweetening it. So you get that, the only sweetness that you'll get from the meads is the back sweetened honey, because we ferment all the mead, the honey down to 0 sugar. So when you actually get it, it's just like alcohol, water, and just the aroma of honey, but not really any taste. So you get almost all the flavor imparted by your back sweetening honey. So that's something I learned in mead making over the years that nobody taught me. I've tried to do it the unconventional way, but we found that this is the best. And it is still made and fermented, all natural. The honey gets flash pasteurized, a real quick ramp up, and 5 seconds later, it's right back down to 75 degrees or something like that Fahrenheit. And that stuns and kills all the bad yeast and wild yeast that makes wine or muscadine wine or whatever turn to vinegar. So at first it tastes good, and then you forget about it. You come back to it later, and it tastes like vinegar. So that's that we kill and knock that bacteria or whatever out, and then the honey is the flavor is still intact. There's something about the quick heat and quick cool that it doesn't kill the flavor. You would think, well, it's cooked now, it's no good. But we do the raw honey, unpasteurized raw honey for the back sweetening. So you still do get all the properties of it through the process without any sulfites. So I don't put any sulfur preservatives in it like that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you want more, you're always welcome to come to our Enterprise location over at Westgate Shopping Center. We're real family friendly, actually. It's very artistic, like artsy. You can come in and do watercolor. You can come to the patio. Dothan's the family friendly destination. So anyway, I appreciate you guys for letting me be a part of your little group, and hit me up later if you want me to try some of your honey down the road. We'll just do a fun little thing, and at least be worth a couple bottles to try it, see how it turned out.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
And before we move forward, we have the bee police with us, our dear friend Philip Carter. And if you would, just give us a few sentences of what y'all are seeing in the bees, please.
Well,
could you stand up?
He's got a bad hip.
I haven't been in the bees a whole lot recently. I'm 5 weeks out from a hip replacement, but I'm getting going now. So I am starting to get into bees now. So, but basically, yeah, I mean, the nectar flow's been kind of up and down is what I've noticed already. And so some people are complaining about that, but all in all, the bees seem to be doing pretty good. And I think folks are doing a pretty good job, staying on top of their mites. And of course, you really don't want to mess with that, of course, when you're making honey, but again, the honey flow's been somewhat, erratic, but you just have to you just have to go with the flow, so to speak.
Are the bees taking a hit? Somebody just mentioned that they're losing some hives and it's just kind of taking off. Are there other beekeepers that you've heard of in the state having declining numbers of their hives?
Well, there's been a national loss, I think everybody's heard about the big national loss, and they're still kind of trying to piece all that together. I got my own theories on it, and I think everything really goes back to the varroa mite, and I think there's viruses and pathogens that we haven't even discovered with the varroa mites. That's why I really preach, you've got to control your varroa mites, so you can keep these viruses down and possibly even, it seems like every couple of years they're always telling us, USDA is always telling us, announcing they found a new virus, and I think now they're probably up to about 10 or 15 different viruses now. And they just wreak havoc on the bees, but that's just and then treatment. Sometimes I think we get stuck using the same treatment, then the treatments don't become effective and they start building up a resistance. So then your mite levels can go up, your viral loads go up, and pathogens, so, but I think it's been pretty stable in Alabama. I haven't heard of any major losses, but yes, I've heard of people, but nothing really, I don't think really, out of the ordinary. I think there was a commercial beekeeper up in Birmingham over the winter. He lost, I think he did lose quite a few, but I don't really know the circumstances. I don't deal with up here. This is my territory down here. So, so anyway, just make sure you stay on top of your mites, and if I can help you in any way, I live in Calvert's, just outside of Dothan. So my job is to help beekeepers, and I'll if you call me, I can't call everybody. I don't call everybody because my list is like this. There's a lot of beekeepers in Southeast Alabama, but if you call me, I will come. I promise you that. And I'll do my best to help you out if you need some assistance.
Thank you, Philip. Real quickly, the latest thing that I read that's very unusual is the scientists are saying there's an iridescent virus that the wax moths have. But remember, the wax moths show up whenever you've done a bad job, not when you've done a good job. So take care of your hives, keep them crowded. But that's one of the things that they say has been around a long time, but now they're paying more attention to it. It's iridescent virus from the wax moth. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Patrick McCalman. He's the head of the Master Beekeeping Program for the state of Alabama and the Alabama Beekeepers Association. We're just honored to have him, and we thank you for coming. So please tell us about products of the hive.
All right. I tell you, if I sample any more of Jeremy's great meat, I don't think Chief Ward's going to let me drive home. So I think I've got to be cut off. That's really good stuff. It really is excellent stuff. My name is Patrick McCalman. I live in Andalusia, Alabama. I think I was trying to figure this out the other day. I think this is my 10th beekeeping season, so I'm still learning. I mean, I know I'm a master beekeeper, and now they made me chairman of the program. I'll tell you, you too can be chairman of the Master Beekeeper program. Just raise your hand. So, I mean, I don't want that to confer any type of great knowledge. I'm still very much learning as a beekeeper and learning each season, every year. I keep bees just south of Andalusia, probably about 10 miles north of the Florida line. And so y'all are familiar with that weather and familiar with the difficulties of trying to treat with anything other than, maybe oxalic acid and amitraz, Apivar. So, we have our own difficulties. Some people would love to be in our positions though. So, you take the good with the bad here. So Richard asked me to come speak, and he wanted me to come speak about honey harvesting, which, I appreciate the opportunity. That is not the funnest topic in the world. My understanding is he stole the funnest topic last time with queen rearing, but nonetheless, honey harvesting is it's where we get to afford to keep up with our addiction. Maybe sell enough honey to go do it another year. So I'm very much a nerdy guy. And so I keep statistics and notebooks and everything about my, my beekeeping every year. And I don't have the first couple of years I was keeping bees, but I really wasn't harvesting honey. But this is kind of my honey production through the years. And we're not going to go over what I did or what I produce, but I got hives over there and hives over here and pounds over there. So I get up to about a ton and a half of honey a year. Now, but certainly no one starts out there. So when Richard asked me to speak about this, I thought, well, he kind of told me the demographic would be that, you might have a few in here who've been doing it a lot longer than I have. have bigger operations than I do, but probably most of them are going to be that 1 to 3 year, a little bit smaller. And so I thought, well, hey, everybody's there at one point, and I was certainly there not that long ago. Again, I don't think I've been doing it all this long. So I wanted to go. What I thought I would do is go back, kind of through how the different processes and the different tools, the different equipment that I've used harvesting honey, anywhere from my first pull, which I think was 27 frames, to my last pull, which was, almost 3,000 pounds. So I want to kind of, and I brought some of these things with me. I've got pictures here. I will tell you, I've got a lot of slides, but almost no words on any of them, all pictures. So, like I was when I was in school, I wasn't a very good student. I always got the books with the pictures. So I've broken this down, and I'm trying to kind of squeeze over here so I don't have to ever turn my back on you. I broke this down to basically 5 basic tasks with harvesting honey. The first task is all right, I've got to go get the honey. I've got to go pull the frames, right? So I've got to go out to my hives. I have to pull these frames. I have to bring them back somewhere secure, hopefully out of the bees, where I can process this honey. And what we want to do, of course, is we want to pull fully capped frames when possible. And why do we want to pull only fully capped frames and not frames that are open that might have, undried nectar in them or wet nectar in them? And bees, through millions of years of evolution or whatever you subscribe to, they have learned that if they seal that honey, if they seal that nectar, when it's too wet, when there's too much water content in that nectar, that under that capping, it's going to ferment. You know a lot about fermentation. It's going to ferment. It's got yeast and it's got water, and those are conditions to make things ferment. And it's going to explode those cappings, and it's going to ruin their food. So I say they've learned, they know that they can't cap that until it gets below a certain point. And that point is generally accepted to be, I've read different things, 18.6%. What do you Jim, you got to...
Yeah, well, I see it all kinds of different ways with my hydrometer. I have a honey hydrometer, and it's showing up to me if it's granulated. Sometimes it's saying like 90s or something like that. It's on scale, but it's because it's crystallized.
Right.
It's giving me a bad reading.
Right.
But if it's around 80, 82 bricks, Play-Doh, that's about where it should be. If it's in the 78 to 80% bricks, it's just percentage of sugar in solution.
Yeah. I'm saying it backwards. I'm saying percentage water. He's saying percentage sugar.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying 18.6, I mean that's percentage water.
That's the moisture,
right.
The max or whatever, but about 80, 82. Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me, but at that bricks level, that's going to be high moisture, because 75.5 bricks is right around 18% moisture.
Yeah.
So that's going to be high moisture.
All right. And I think naturally in my area over in Covington County, I have a lot of tallow over there. I have a lot of popcorn tree tallow. It's a good bit of what I make, and that just generally is a little bit of a wetter honey. So I live in some paranoia that I'm going to cap. I'm going to put too wet of honey in my buckets, and one day I'm going to walk in my honey house and it's going to be all over the floor, ruined. So I'm a little over paranoid. I do have. You were talking about you probably have one a lot fancier than this. Talking about a refractometer.
Oh,
just the same.
Yeah, you got to scrape it on. You can't.
Right.
Smear it. You can't even put a drop on it.
So anyway, I can't get into it. But just this little refractometer, and you can put honey on here, and you can tell. And I think this costs like $40 on Amazon or something. It's not very expensive. Now you can buy the little digital kind that will set you back, a whole lot of money. So,
Does anybody want to look at it?
yeah, y'all welcome to. I brought all kinds of. Here you go. I don't know how to put it back in here.
Yeah, the light reacts with the sugar. The refractive index of sugar, when light hits the lens, it shows a level inside. and depending on where the sugar level is, will tell you how much, or in other words, by knowing the sugar, it tells you how much moisture.
But I will tell you that most beekeepers don't have that. I have it because I worry about it too much. Most beekeepers don't. What they do is they trust the bees. Bees aren't always right, but they are usually right. And so they trust the bees and they say, hey, if that bee has capped that honey, put that wax capping on top of the cell, that means that they felt it was dry enough to cap it. And that's why we kind of rely on them when we're pulling those frames, to only pull frames with capped honey. Now, then you get into this whole thing. Well, what if it's like 80% capped? And think, well, let your conscience be your guide. I mean, it's going to be your honey that spoils. If you're going to sell it real quickly, or if you're going to use it, cap it. I mean, uncap it, use it. But if you're going to be storing it for a long period of time, that's when you have to start just be really, really thinking: is this frame worth it? If it's possibly wet, you can take a frame with some open cells and you can shake it real vigorously, and if nothing comes out, okay, that's an indication, right, that it's dry enough. But again, I really like to have cap frames. So anyway, first task of harvesting honey is pull frames. Second is I'm gonna have to take that wax capping that they put on there off. So I'm gonna have to uncap those frames. A lot of ways to do that. We're gonna talk about several. The next thing is I'm gonna have to get that honey to come out of those cells. I'm gonna have to uncap it. Now I've got to get them out. I can't just pour it out. It's honey. I mean, it will gravity flow, but that's going to take a week. I want to spin that out. Usually that's done in some type of centrifuge that spins and throws that honey out on a stainless steel wall, and it comes down, and you've seen those probably. Okay, my fourth step is I have to strain or clarify the honey. So once I spin this out, with that, I'm spinning bee parts and propolis and wax and a lot of stuff I can't identify and don't want to identify. But honestly, if you've ever done this, if you've spinning honey, you'll get kind of this frothy foam on top of that honey. That is the best tasting stuff. If you take your finger in that and put it in, it's gritty, and gosh knows what you're putting in your mouth, but it is so good. But
What's the mesh of your first strain?
Yeah, well, I'm about to get to that because that's a big deal. But you do have to get that after you want to sell this honey, because they're not going to want that gritty stuff in there. They're not going to want to see bee legs floating in the honey jar that they're about to buy. To me, that makes it a lot more legit. I know it's real honey, but it ain't for everybody. And there's also not only you strain, you can also clarify it. We're going to go through some of that too, which is basically just letting it settle. All right, and then the last thing, which we're not going to talk much about at all, is just storing your honey. I mean, initially, I actually would just go ahead and jar it in the glass jars that I was going to use to sell it in, but I didn't have much. Now I put it into 5-gallon buckets, and I'm starting to toy with getting into a 55-gallon barrel, but I really don't want to have to deal with barrels. I can barely deal with the buckets, and I'm not getting younger. So one thing I do want to say about buckets, though. So there are two kinds, well, there are all kinds of buckets, but these are two 5-gallon buckets. One is a 70 mil bucket, okay? I don't know if that means 70 millimeters, or I don't know. It's a 70 mil bucket. And you can see on the bottom of this, it says 70 mil. This is a 90 mil bucket, okay? This is about $3.50, and this is about $8. I have switched my entire operation. I probably have 50 or 60 of these in my honey house. I've switched my entire operations to 90 mil buckets. The reason I did that was because I would use these 70 mil buckets, and I didn't know if I was using a bucket that I bought last year or 3 years ago. So I was storing everything back before I had a honey house. I was storing it in our guest bedroom, and after a while, this thinner bucket starts wearing, right there, and it'll crack. Okay, and yes, it's a lot more expensive to invest in the $8 bucket other than the $3.50 bucket, but divorces are expensive too. And I almost had one. So I made that move and been happy with it. But I lost 2 buckets of honey like that. And the thing is you don't know. No alarm goes off in your house, and I don't go in my guest bedroom, and that stuff's all over the place by the time you figure it out. So anyway, the dog liked it.
Quality remains long after the price is forgotten.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And they're all food grade, right?
All food grade, absolutely. All food grade buckets. You really can't find the 90 mil in like a Lowe's or something like that. You have to order them. That $8, I think I have freight factored into that. I had $8 in my head. So it was well worth it. So my first generation, I got into this, I was 44 years old. I'd always wanted bees all my life. I was a critter kid. Those little Uncle Milton ant farms, if y'all ever had them, I got one every year for Christmas. I mail off for the ants. Could not understand why these sterile ants weren't making baby ants, and all my ants were dying. Didn't realize you needed a queen. Mom and Dad never had that talk with me. So, so I loved, critters, and I always wanted. My first career I did for 21 years, and honest to God, never had time to do anything. My second career, a month after I start that job, I'm like, I've got time now. I'm gonna go get my bees, and I promised my wife, I just want one hive in my backyard. I just want one in the backyard, baby. I promise you, one in the backyard.
That's famous last word.
So right, so and then
Just
the addiction kicked in. But when I had my one in the backyard, which turned into 4 in the backyard before the first year was out, my first harvest, I think, was about 27 frames. So this is how I did it. So I've broken this down, and I'm calling them generations. This is where, I had a process. It worked until I added more frames. And then I had a bottleneck. And then I had to solve the bottleneck. And once you solve for that bottleneck, you create another bottleneck over here. And then you got to go solve for that bottleneck. So the rest of this is going to be just showing you the different products I use, the different strategies I use, and how I solve for bottlenecks. So first generation, if you've harvested honey, this is going to be really familiar with you. I pull my frames. You got to get the bees off the frames. You can't bring them home. Wives don't like that either. Brush my frames off, stuck them in a box, cover the box very quickly, do all that till you have all your frames, take them home, right? So I pulled the frames. Now I've got to uncap the frames. I started with my wife's bread knife and a capping scratcher. So, 27 frames, you can get through. You can do that. I mean, it wasn't that big a deal. Worked just fine. Now I used this little thing. I think I borrowed it at Man Lake, and I've got it right here. I still have it, and it fits onto a honey bucket. And you see how that would work. There's a little nail that's supposed to come up out of here. You put that frame up on that nail like that's sitting. And then you take your knife and your capping scratcher and you open up all those cells. All right, now it's ready to be extracted. So I had a buddy who had a 6-frame manual extractor. So you uncap 6 frames, you put those 6 frames in the extractor, and it's a manual extractor, so now I'm going to have to manually crank this, right? I'm not going to be able to keep uncapping frames. And nobody in my family is about to come out there and help me. So, anyway, we'll talk about how you address some of these things. But, you have to stop, you have to get all of your frames spun, and then you start over on the next 6 frames, right? Uncapping, spinning. And because no one told me better, I bought one 200 micron. Yeah, for all those who know. I'm going to tell you the fun, and I'm sorry to do this. So my first year, I'm going into my first winter, and I've read all the books. And I don't have really a mentor. I've got an old gruff guy that lets me borrow his extractor because I begged him, but he ain't going to talk to me about bees, and I don't know anything. So I'm reading the books. So anyway, this guy just happens to see me walking out of Marvin's, and I've got a roll of tar paper, roofing felt. And hey, Patrick, what you doing with that roofing felt? Well, it's November. I'm going to go wrap my hives in Covington County. I'm going to go wrap my hives because the books say you wrap your hives. Well, yeah, the beekeepers in Wisconsin, they wrap their hives. So anyway, he still to this day loves saying, "Hey, Patrick, you wrapping hives?" So anyway, but this is this is a little in bucket strainer. You drop in here and put your honey in and let it strain through there. Okay, we're going to talk about the problems with that in the next generation. But honestly, I'm doing 20 to 40 frames. This works. I mean, it's cheap. It works. It's fine. If you just have a hive or two in the backyard and you really just love honey and you're going to do, keep it all yourself and give it to your friends, there's no, this works just fine. But I had an addiction problem, so I kept moving. So as I'm going up in frames, I start hitting my problems. First problem is it ain't no fun uncapping anything with a cold bread knife. And you're destroying your comb, and you basically wind up scraping half of it off, and my knife's not sharp, and my wife doesn't understand why the propolis won't cut off the handle of the knife. And so I honestly got tired of doing that. It was cumbersome. And so what I did was I went to Walmart and I bought an electric fish fillet knife. And me being me, cheap pays twice. I bought the $25 electric fish fillet knife. And 3 hours later, I was driving back out to Walmart because I'd burned up a little motor in it. And I bought the Rapala fish fillet knife, which I still have. And that was a huge improvement, believe it or not. I mean, even though it wasn't heated, just those oscillating blades going through those cappings, it really worked very well. And then you cleaned it up with a capping scratcher. So that helped get the cappings off. But my real problem in the early days is that will hold maybe half gallon of honey, gallon of honey, half gallon of honey. And then you got to sit there and watch it. And as you drain honey through it, more garbage gets stuck in those little tiny pores, those little tiny holes. And you know that your last thing, you basically have to leave it overnight for it to strain out in that bucket. So if you don't have a cappings tank, again, 6 frames in, I got to stop uncapping. I have to spin. So now I can't, I really have to wait until all that honey strains out of the strainer, out of the extractor. At some point, I have too much honey, and I don't have a way to clarify that honey or strain that honey. Okay, so still not knowing what I'm doing, I just went and got 4 of them, 200 micron. Now, 200 micron, as far as I know, is the finest strainer that these bee companies sell. Man Lake, it's the finest strainer they sell. I could have used a really good mentor. I'll just tell you. So, but what I did was I did buy the 4. Now I'm uncapping faster, and I am straining faster because what I have now is I have 4 buckets, and I'm just playing the bucket brigade. And I don't know if y'all done that, but you have several buckets, you have several strainers in the buckets, and you just move the next one in. You unload, you put about a half gallon of honey in that one. You move the next one in, put a half gallon of honey, and they gravity feed through those strainers. So, again, an incremental step. It did make things go a little bit faster, but I still was adding frames. So next generation was I'm now in, maybe I'm getting 100 or something frames, maybe more than 100 frames. I don't really remember, but it gets real cumbersome and very hot to have to pick up each one of these frames individually and brush them off, put them in, go back and forth to the hive, to your truck, and brush them off individually. So I bought a fume board. And a fume board is basically like a top, a little bit smaller than a telescoping cover. And it's got a felt piece on the top of it, into the top of the fume board. And then you pour a fumigant on it, and some of them smell like almonds, some of them smell like, I hate to say it, vomit, right? Really bad. I think I got the vomit, not the vomit, the almond stuff. And you saturate that felt, you put it on top, you take your cover off, put the fume board on top, and the bees really hate that smell. And so they come out of the hive, they move out of that top, at least in theory, they move out of that top super, and they leave you a clear super. Then you just go and you take the super off. And now instead of doing it one frame at a time, you're doing it one box at a time. So that process goes a little bit quicker. All right, my 6-frame extractor. Number one, I was borrowing it from someone who really didn't like me borrowing it from him. And I understand that now. I don't like people borrowing my stuff either, because I'm using it when you're wanting to use it. I mean, that's the problem with, borrowing bee stuff is everybody's extracting at the same time. Everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. So also, but what I really didn't like about it was I was having to do this 6 frames at a time. You get up to, 120, 150 frames, and that's just a lot of circuits, just a lot of stop and go circuits. So I really made my first big beekeeping purchase, and I went to an 18 frame. So now I can do this 18 frames at a time. I can uncap 18 frames, put those 18 frames in, but me being me, cheap buys twice, I bought the manual. So I got to stop, even though I've got the 18 in, I got to stop, and now I've got to crank the 18, okay, by hand. I've got 2 really healthy boys that I just call parasites. Never help. I thought surely my boys will want to come out here and turn this track. Surely every boy, they didn't want anything to do with it. So out there doing it myself. But this was good simply because it almost kind of served as a cappings tank for me. Because I had a place to uncap 18 frames and put them in. That did speed things up. Of course, now the honey's coming a lot faster too. You're opening up a lot of honey, so you're making problems down the road. Every time you solve a problem up at the top of the hose, you build a problem at the bottom of the hose, and vice versa.
That was almost 5 gallons of honey too.
What now?
18 frames, almost 5 gallons of honey.
Yeah, it's almost a bucket of honey. Yep. Okay. Now, I thought I got smart. I didn't. I have my 4 200 micron filters. I found out, no one told me, but I found out in the catalog they sold a 600 micron filter. Well, 200 is the smallest they sell, and the bigger the number, the larger the hole. Okay, so.
Hey, Grayson.
And I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is a 200 micron filter, and this is a 600 micron filter. Okay, so this runs a whole lot better, and it did help. It helped the throughput tremendously. It's 600 instead of 200. It's not as fine of a filter, but I really wasn't seeing any bad results from it. I worried about it, but I really wasn't seeing any bad results from it. So I bought 4 of those. So bigger extractor, honey's coming quicker. I tried to account for that. I always failed at doing that. So, but again, I'm growing, I'm learning. It is going faster, just not near fast enough. So get to the 4th generation. So at some point, this stuff starts costing money, and we're about to get to that point. So the fume boards. Most of the people I know use fume boards. You use fume boards? Try. A lot of beekeepers I know use fume boards. I've got a buddy over there now that I've mentored, and he loves his fume board. I'm probably not doing it right. I don't know. I get frustrated with them. I think it's because I don't have any patience and I can't sit there and let it clear. But I got frustrated with fume boards, so I went back to the bee brush. Yes, it takes longer, but I don't want to have to extract. And at that point, I had this little bitty shack, and I just didn't want to be there with 1,000 bees, and my wife didn't want to be there. Not that she comes out there anyway, but a lot of times, like the kids in the neighborhood, I live in a neighborhood, kids want to come over and watch you extract and stuff, and you can't let them in there. So, but this is where I made a truly game-changing move. I'm now into the hundreds of frames. This knife's killing me. I've got bad shoulders. I've got a little bit of arthritis in my hands. I've got all kind of other health problems I could talk to you all night about. But I bought something called a Simple Harmony Farms uncapper. And I brought it here. And I absolutely love this thing. Of the things I purchased in my beekeeping career, this was the biggest game changer for me, was a Simple Harmony Farms uncapper. And the way this works is you take a frame, you push it into between these two rollers. These rollers they're not sharp. They're not going to cut you. And they really don't cut off the cappings. They crush the capping. They crush that capping and kind of, crush it in, and they crush the both sides of your frame. And so you pull that out. Now I'll run it through 2 or 3 times. And I'll turn around, run it through 2 or 3 times, run it at an angle. If you've ever done it, you kind of get the hang of it. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it ain't much. I think this costs $450. Yeah, it's not cheap, but when it comes to, it's very heavy. Yeah. Nothing in beekeeping's cheap. I mean, there are not enough of us to make a big enough market, I don't think. So they charge everything. So
We used those for a long time.
so you mount that on a cappings tank, and you start, and that is, that takes this process of meticulously going through both sides of the frame and cutting off these cappings to just plunge uncapping it. I think that when you put it in the extractor, you're gonna have to spin it a little bit longer because again, you didn't cut off those caps, you just crushed them. So you're gonna have to kind of force that honey through, but it certainly works, and you certainly get it fully extracted.
Does it make it difficult? Is it the cells or whatever on each side? They're still good. The bees like it. They'll get right back in there.
So it makes this very weird pattern in the cappings. And it's almost kind of like these grooves you see in it. Within a week, you can't tell when you put it back. Within a week, they have them built back out. The other thing that I liked about this was it doesn't really take a lot of cappings off. If you're a candle maker, you don't want to ever buy that because you're not going to get a lot of wax. But it leaves the wax stuck into the frame, and those bees can come pick it out with their mandibles, reform that wax, and rebuild their comb. And seriously, on a flow, they'll have it rebuilt and they'll be refilling within a week. They'll have it completely restructured. Okay. I spent some money this year. I also bought a Maxant uncapping tank because this thing held 18 frames. 18 frames with the insert in, and I needed the insert because I uncapped into the insert. So I mounted this onto this tank. And I'd uncap my 18 frames, put it in my 18 frame extractor, and then I could go right back while that was being extracted. I could go back immediately to extracting again with my plunge with the Simple Harmony Farms uncapper. And if you notice, I said that while I'm extracting, because I went and bought a conversion kit motor for my extractor, which was dumb. Not that it was dumb that I didn't buy it to begin with, because I basically, I could have bought the whole thing 2 years before and not spent, but buying it separately like that cost me an extra like $300. So, and I'll just tell you, if you're gonna be uncapping a couple hundred a year, you're not gonna be happy with a manual uncapper.
Buy once, cry once.
That's right. That's right. That's right. As my dad always told me, cheap buys twice, and by God, I've never learned that. I still haven't learned that lesson. So now, you know, huh? What now?
I bought a 20 frame electric for $300 for somebody.
Wow,
Nice.
that's great. Absolutely. When you can find that kind of thing.
He didn't know what he had.
Absolutely.
You didn't buy
No, we
that.
didn't.
You stole it.
That's right. Absolutely.
Just go turn yourself.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's such a good.
Check the serial numbers. I bet it's rubbed off.
Quality extraction equipment has such a good resale value. When you see it, buy it. I mean, because I rarely find it. I got lucky, and I'm going to get into where I got lucky later. But I rarely find it. So I went from 600 micron, because now I'm really coming with honey, right? So I bought 4 more, and I have 8. And I've got 8 buckets just all around me, and I'm just shoving them up under, letting it go, shoving up under, letting it go. Pain, running the bucket brigade. So this is me in my shop with a time release camera over my head. And this is where I am in this generation. So I'm spinning my frames. I've got 18 frames in my uncapper. Take that out, fill that up, start uncapping again. 18 more frames right here. So I'm not stopping, right? I am uncapping, moving the whole time. This is where I wanted to be. This is where I always wanted to be. I just didn't want to sit there and stare at a bucket, straining honey, saying, hurry up, hurry up. I mean, I would do dumb things like I would go in July and I'd put a couple of heaters in the shop just to try to heat my honey up and make it run faster. So this is where I always wanted to be. And I can tell you, you can burn through some frames right here. This is a pretty good setup, but it cost me a good bit of money to get there.
Total cost today, you think, to buy that same setup?
1,000, 1,500 for the uncapper and the uncapping tank, and probably what, 1,800, 2,100 for the extractor with motor.
Probably about $4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little side pieces.
Yep. But I kept spending money.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. So, 5th generation. Once again, I have 8 buckets all over me. And, and I'm just, and then, so you get this issue too. And if you've done it, you know it. So this fits in here and sits down on what, about 4 or 5 inches, 4.5 inches, something like that. Sits down in the bucket. So you can't fill up your bucket, right? And so now I'm like, well, I don't want all my buckets to have 4 gallons in them, won't have 5 gallons in them. So now I'm pouring from this bucket into this bucket. And you do that for a weekend, and you know what the floor is like. I mean, it's all over the place. So I just got really dissatisfied with that. Let's see. So again, I've got these 8. That's not doing it for me. And then I got real lucky. And an older gentleman that I knew was trying to cut down on hives, trying to get out of the business. So he sold me this pump that came over sometime right after the Civil War. Walter T. Kelly. It's an old Walter T. Kelly honey pump. It sounds like a freight train when it runs, and but I cleaned it up. This is right after I bought it, so I took all that stuff off, cleaned it all up. I don't have the the old, that's galvanized metal. Good grief, God knows. But took all of that off, and and got that pump pretty cheap. He was wanting to get rid of it. I also got, and people call this different things. I call it a gravity clarifier. Some people call it Some, I think they'll call it anyway, I don't know. Let's call it a gravity clarifier. So it's a gravity clarifier where your honey comes in on this side right here and runs under this baffle. It runs under that first baffle and over the second baffle. And that basically, and if it takes a long time to get there. That's about 12 gallons. I wish mine was bigger. I also wish it was water jacketed and heated because it can get really slow. But you get what is in front of you. So, whoops. So got that. And then another beekeeper I found was selling a 100-gallon settling tank. Old Walter T. Kelly tank, very old, but he was getting rid of it, and it was worked out great for me. So this is now a video of my setup and how my honey house was worked. So again, I've got the plunge uncapper here, and we're going to go through this a couple of times. It's very short. Got my extractor running and draining into the settlement tank, the gravity clarifier. Not the settlement tank, the gravity clarifier. Pumped over and into the 100-gallon settlement tank. Okay? And we'll do that one more time, just because I want to show you something on it. Golly. All right, I want you to look at the gravity clarifier when we go through it. I want you to see where it's feeding in, and you see all the trash over on that side, but over here, it's clear, okay? Because it's screening that stuff off to where it's not, you ultimately still probably need to filter it or strain it, but not near as bad of a deal to do. Also, when it goes into that settling tank, I'll let it sit there for maybe a couple of weeks. Make sure that I don't have a high humidity level in there. I have a dehumidifier in there. But I'll let it sit there a couple of weeks. And when I go in after a couple of weeks, I'm telling you, I can almost float a baseball on top of that honey because all that trash is in a thick mat on the top. And then you pull, of course, into your buckets from the bottom. So you're getting, it's just the prettiest honey you'll see. It's super clean. And you don't even have to filter it. Now, I will put the 200 micron filter on, and now it's just running through it. It's got no problem getting through a 200 micron filter when there's no trash in it.
You ever put a heat fan on it?
A heating fan?
Heat band?
A heat band? No, but I've thought about it. I've thought about it. I'll normally, it's normally summer, so I just turn the air conditioner off in there and, and try to heat everything up. All right. So there's more. All right. So the brush, I really love the brush. The brush got old. I didn't like the fume boards. So I got Kung Fu on it.
It works.
It works. So I got a battery-powered leaf blower. I set the whole box on my tailgate and I blow them off. Now you don't blow them off into the truck because that kills them. But you blow them off into the air. You get a lot of bees in the air. But oddly enough, they don't get really upset. They doesn't seem to bother them. You've done that, Trey?
You get one of those little job site blowers.
Yeah,
Those things really cook it.
Right. Yeah.
There's no way to rig anything up where you can just take the super on its side.
It works.
The propolis would not let enough air flow through there to blow them out.
Probably not. And a lot of times I'll sit there with a hive tool and I'll like spread the frames apart and kind of manipulate them. Just got a lot of them there. Mm-hmm. So that works pretty well. I've only done that a couple of times so far. I'm very new to doing that, but it's working well enough. The bees aren't as clean to me. The supers aren't as clean of bees as with the brush for me because I'm pretty meticulous with the brush, but this is just going to have to do from now on.
If you use the fume boards first,
Go do now? What now?
if you use the fume boards first and then tip them up on the hive and blow them from the bottom out the top, that's how I do it. And I get very few.
I
bees
bet
in the
you
house.
do. That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. I probably should do that.
Mhm.
It's just kind of a lot of things I should do that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
right.
always learning.
Right,
different
exactly,
things. That's why we
exactly.
get together and talk, so we can
Right.
figure out what everybody else is doing
Absolutely.
that works.
So, and I finally pseudo-retired the love of my life, the Simple Harmony Farms on Capper. And I really stepped up and bought this.
There you
This
go.
thing.
Chain
So this is a
uncapper.
licensed manual steam uncapper. And
Mhm.
you see this little steam thing on the bottom? That's nothing more than a Wagner wallpaper steamer that they have repurposed over in Poland. They build this in Poland. So they make a really nice unit called a Silver Queen. Cohen Extraction Company makes these, and if you've ever seen one, it's beautiful and it's really heavy duty. You know,
$20,000.
big heavy steel, $20-something thousand. Right. This one's not quite that much. No, this is nowhere close to that. But they make this, Lyson makes this. It's a Polish company. It's got one distributor in the United States, better be, out of New York. And so I got this. Now, this thing has oscillating blades down here, and you force the frame through those oscillating blades, which are heated by the steam. And it does an incredible job. Once again, you're paying for this. This is, I think, freight and all, this cost me about $4,300 to get it to my house in Indonesia. So, that's a whole lot of honey. But so I actually have a little video of that. I've used this one time so far. That's it. And you can put 4 frames in this. I just wasn't doing it right here. But so you crank it, you force it down through those, see those oscillating blades that are heated.
So they're doing
And-
steam. Steam
and-
just heat them up.
Steam just heating metal. Oh yeah,
But
you're
you
not
gotta
having.
if you do
Okay.
deeps and mediums, like if you have some that have deeps and mediums, you'll have to do all mediums at one time.
That's right.
Change your settings, then change the deeps, and then do your deep boxes.
Use more manual.
Right. And it pushes
They're
those
nice.
frames
It's
forward.
a game changer. I
Now,
love to have one.
what I've done, I planned on buying this, save money for it from honey sales and everything for about 3 years. But while I was doing that, I also converted all my supers to 9-frame supers. I put the little inserts in it, which I always hated, but I did it. And now, all of my supers, all my honey frames are fat. And so that really does a really good job. I didn't have to, I ran this was actually last weekend. It's the first time I've ever used the thing. And I actually
why aren't
ran
you at the meeting?
130 frames through, and I never picked up a capping scratcher. And it got it that good. I mean,
Because you went to 9 frames in your honey super.
I think,
Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's so much easier
Right.
to uncap them.
Right.
Because I mean,
they
I
will a
know.
little bit, but
I let
I will
mine
tell you
draw
that I
out
do
at
it. I
night.
put up with some stuff, but I'll do it. I'll put them in.
they get so nice
And
and
that
fat.
leaves hardly any maintenance for the bees to do on the backside.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. So it's nice. It's an expensive solution. I mean, I didn't look again. I've been buying this over 10 years, and I would target something and save for it. Through. I mean, I was not about to spend any of my wife's money. I could explicitly show her where the money came from. She's not a fan of my
Were
beekeeping.
you able to convince her that you guys always had it?
No, she's a very smart woman. So no. So a little plug for the Alabama Master Beekeepers Association. Program. I became an Alabama Master Beekeeper in 2019. Trey's been in that program,
What's that?
the Master Beekeeper program.
I'll be taking next year.
Yeah, right. But you're a journeyman now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a 3-level program. Richard's a graduate program. You're
I'm going for my journeyman this year.
good. Excellent. See, I wasn't there last year. I had a lot of some family health issues, and so I had to drop out last year. But I'm back this year.
It's a good program.
Mm-hmm. And so we have kind of tried to partner and align ourselves with the Auburn University Bee Lab, And so about half of our instructors come over from there to teach here, and then the other half classes are taught by former master beekeepers. And look, it's I'm not gonna say it's the equivalent of anything, but if you're a nerd like me and just wanted to learn more, I don't know that it truly makes you a better beekeeper. You just learn a lot. Just learn a lot about bees, and that's a lot of fun to me. I enjoyed it. This year's program is going to be July 24th through 26th in Clanton, Alabama, and the 24th and 25th are class dates. The 26th is testing. We also run a beginner program during this time period. So if you're a beginner, that's only the 24th and 25th that you'll come for the beginner classes. And, we have a completely different curriculum for that. So, if you're interested, or AlabamaMasterBeekeepers.com, or you can just go to the ABA website. We redid the website last year, and it needs some work on it. So when you go to that tab on the ABA website, it looks like there's one page to it. But if you go back up in the tab and pull the tab down, it's got all the information about all the different levels, about all the requirements, what's expected of you, what's the testing requirements, what objectives of each level, and all that type of stuff. It's just not really evident from a quick look at the website, but it's all there. So I brought all this stuff. And that's the end of my presentation. I have no idea how long that took me. I hope it was not too long. All right.
Perfect.
Look, we can talk about this. We can talk about anything bee related. Yes,
Have you used any of the bee escapes?
Yeah, I've tried it. I had
some,
one,
but I just can't seem to get them to figure it out.
I
got stupid bees.
And my fear, they never work for me either.
They're just stupid.
No, it never
They're
worked for me either.
chickens. They're stupid.
Yeah, and my fear is with the small hive beetles we have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that if I leave it on for the 3 or 4 days it's going to take for them to figure that out, that my small hive beetles are going to run crazy in my honey supers.
Well, and you have to make so many trips out there too.
Right.
I mean, because
Yeah.
you got to go out there if it bee escapes on,
That's
and then you
right.
got to go back, take bee
Yep.
escape off, and pull your supers.
And now you're picking up the 60-pound
Yeah.
box and multiple times.
Okay, that's the first question. Now we're gonna have a drawing for a door prize.
Oh.
Everybody got your number,
Each question.
right? And our good unofficial bee club member, Dave, he brought a couple of things, and we're gonna let Lisa draw them.
Yeah.
Draw your own number.
Draw my own?
Yeah, draw one.
I never did.
And this is for a beekeeper's veil from.
I drew my own number.
Everybody film.
That's so funny.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
Oh, that's funny. I
Um,
can't believe I did that.
One thing that I'm excited about, and Philip, I want to ask you about. I feel sure there's not a whole lot of information or a lot of results out on it yet, but I always believed that an extended release oxalic acid solution was going to be the answer to Varroa. I'm no scientist, and I don't know that. That's just a dumb kid that graduated from my high school that's saying I think it's this is the end all be all. And of course, that Viroxan came out last summer. And I don't know if you're seeing a lot of that, people buying that. I've yet to buy it, but you can use it with honey supers on, and it's an extended release oxalic acid. So, the problem with oxalic acid has always been it's kind of this flash treatment, and it doesn't get in the cappings. So, it kills the Varroa that are exposed at the time you blow it in, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of benefit beyond that. Now you're putting oxalic acid into your hives for 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or even more, 48
You go through
days.
brood
something like that.
cycles.
Okay, right. So, but I don't know that we, the jury's still out, I guess. I mean, we only had last year, it became legal last year, I think.
Put it in there.
just like you would any of the strips.
It's almost like.
It does fold over.
Except it's a U.
Yeah.
It's like a U shape.
You put it in the brood or.
Which is the way Hot Guard always has been. If you ever use Hot Guard,
I always preach that anything that's extended is always gonna be far better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen some pretty good results with people using it, but then Trey said that he used it back in February.
Yeah, it stopped the brood for me.
did it really?
Down,
It
what he
shut the
said.
brood down.
But I haven't heard that. I've heard other people say, man, they love it. The inspector, the Florida inspector down there said he's seen good results in the Panhandle with it.
Really?
So, I mean, but you just never know the time of the year and just,
Yeah.
the factors.
Yeah, and I'll be fair, it may have been that, it may have been the time, I did it coming out of the winter. I was thinking I was gonna reduce my night loads coming out of the winter.
Yeah.
Before the, the flow really started,
Right.
but it shut down my queens.
Right.
Again, it might have been a timing issue. I see the benefits of it if I used it in the wrong time. For me, it felt that that's what it was.
Right.
But I read on it, and you were asking about the supers, so, and Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, you can use it supposedly during the flow, but you have to have a box between the brood box that it's in and the supers.
That's what the label says.
Oh.
Yes.
And the label's a law, isn't it, Philip?
That's right.
Mhm.
We heard that from Patrick McCalman in the Master Beekeeper program. Next one.
Next is same, from Dave, number 24.
24.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Yes.
When you were using the 600 micro strainer, did you go back and strain it again with a small?
Some years I did, and some years I didn't.
Say that again.
Some years I did, and some years I didn't. Honestly, I mean,
Is there a
I
reason for not doing it?
laziness is why I didn't do it. But I honestly don't think I honestly don't think I needed to do it. I mean, I've gotten more and more, I sell at a farmer's market. I sell wholesale to a farmer's market. 90% of my honey sell wholesale to a farmer's market. I mean, we create a farm product. If you want some perfect, clear, beautiful liquid, I mean, go buy that sugar garbage they're selling you at Walmart. I mean, it's a farm product. And so now that being said, I think I have very clean honey. I don't see anything in my honey. But I've gotten where I worry a little bit less and less.
Well, I think if there's some micro in there that you would actually see them
Yeah,
in your bottle.
I think so. And I never did. I never had any kind of complaint with it. But now that I have that settling tank, I'll run it all through the 200 micron just because it goes so quick.
Everything out, but you need some of that pollen in there.
Well,
Right.
not to be a smart aleck, but the meaning of the micron number is what it will allow to go through. That size piece in a micron measurement is what will go through that.
That's right. Your pollen spores are around, I mean, they vary, but they're around, 15 to 30. I've seen as big as 35, but it will let those spores go through.
Next drawing.
Now, this is a
Good grief. that was
interest
a little-
feeder, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
It's about to be time to have to start feeding. Not long. 27. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
That was donated by my wife, Barbara.
Next question.
Did you forget her name?
Next question. Next question.
Any
And
question? We got this and
You
one
want to
more.
give something else away?
and
Ask
I'll
a question, or we're not giving it
We
away.
got a question.
yes, ma'am.
Okay?
What's your video again on the last, that you showed?
The last one, the one with that was being
Your big
uncapping.
expensive- Yeah.
Yeah, my big expensive.
We get hot dogs going.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Buy one's
Ah.
prize.
But now you're still manual. You went back to manual, right?
The extraction? Oh no.
If you can get it to where it's at least self-sustaining, but it's difficult. I mean, I'm still not there.
4.
So, I mean, it's getting there.
Oh,
I'm
wow!
having to do a
It's
lot of
like
cutouts.
30. It's very long.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, you're right. But
It's that
you and
dopamine. I'm
Oh yeah,
chasing
you're right. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah,
So you're gonna buy the conversion kit?
probably so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the way it
With
works.
the cappings, you render the cappings down,
Toy there.
Yes, sir.
render it into
Rack
beautiful,
there where you
beautiful
put it in,
yellow,
I was
golden
told.
wax.
Yes, sir.
And you make candles
Now,
with
if there
it,
was
or
someone
you
else
wax
there to
your
hit you,
foundations
you
with
turning
it that
it,
you're putting in
someone
your
gets steady and one falls out another one, so you could just.
That's right. Yes, I time myself, and
Yeah,
again,
you can
I've
sell it
had,
once you
I've
render it
done,
down and
I've
put it
I've
in
only done
boxes
about like
and stuff.
130
Here's
frames.
the question and answer,
So,
John.
I mean, I've done like about 140 frames. That's all I've done. So there's a lot of learning curve that I don't have on this yet.
Yeah.
But I timed myself, and I did I did 9 frames, a box of frames, a whole super, in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And that was individually picking them up and putting them in and dropping it.
And you doing it all.
Yes, that was me doing it all.
So someone you had, like.
You could
me and
fly.
her, we both.
Absolutely.
Be, so
If you're lucky enough to have a wife that will get in the honey house with you, yes.
She's bad about being in the bees.
Good. Right. That's a good thing.
Okay, next giveaway. Hold on.
What is this? Tell them what that is, Lisa. That's a
We're
manual.
giving it away right now.
Hang on
Hold
just a second.
Manual and
Capping
pepper.
scraper.
Scraper. What's the take that?
It's one of them hit
Capping
my bob.
fork.
Yeah.
But it's got the scraper too.
Number
My
30.
fork bit.
That's me.
There we
All
go.
right.
She was gonna need one. Hand that over.
All right.
Philip, next
Philip,
question.
How many colonies did you pull the honey supers off of? How many colonies?
Oh, all right. So Philip, I'm kind of low on, I think I've got like 54 colonies right now, which is a little lower, but I didn't pull, I only went to, I've got 5 yards and 54 colonies, and that's another dumb thing that I did. But probably, I think probably about 45 colonies I pulled that off of.
So you need about 50 or above.
Hey, Russell.
To warrant the cost of maybe buying something like that.
I would probably get more than that. I mean, I think I uncap almost 1,000 frames a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like I said, I mean, I'm getting old. I gain 20 pounds every year. I mean, everything's just going to hell. So, right.
Okay, next
So that was the
giveaway.
question, and it is a jar of blueberry flavored creamed honey. And your number 25.
All right.
Next
Okay, so
question.
we're about to wrap this up.
What do you do
We're
with
still
all
doing
that?
questions. We're
So,
gonna wrap this
you
up.
know,
Thanks for y'all. Thanks for
I
coming.
don't get a lot of wax because this is the first time I've done this. This thing produces a ton of wax. I mean,